Hi, Teri here from Stamping Magic. Welcome back to my channel. Today's project is a cute card. I've used the Little Ladybug stamp set, and I've also used my homemade cloud stencil and grass stencil. I've also created another Ladybug frame, but this one was created a little bit different to the one you may have seen before in a previous video. So let's get started. These are all the measurements you need for all the elements required to create this project. So if you are interested in reproducing it, you can take a screenshot and refer to it later. This is the Little Ladybug stamp set, and I'm using two of the main images, the thank you sentiment and the Little Ladybug border stamp. I'll be using VersaFine Onyx Black ink for this first lot of stamping because I want to emboss with clear powder. So I'm prepping my cardstock with my embossing buddy, then I can ink up my stamps and stamp the images. Then I can cover with clear powder. I'm going to stamp my sentiment using the same ink onto the mango card and also cover that with clear powder. Now I also need 9 more of the little flowers stamped. I'm going to use these to decorate my card. So I'm just going to stamp my ladybug with the flower onto the edge of the cardstock and cover with clear embossing powder. Now I do need 9, but I've already prepared these, so I'm only stamping 2 here. Then I can heat set everything with my heat tool. I'm going to die cut the sentiment using the smallest of the stitched So Sweetly dies. There are coordinating dies for the images in the stamp set, but I don't actually own these, so I'll cut mine out by hand. I'll also cut out all the little flowers that I've stamped. For the Ladybug frame, I'm going to use my stamp positioning tool, which is my Stamp-A-Majig. Now, Stampin' Up used to sell these, but they no longer do. But you can buy them elsewhere, or if you can't get hold of this one, there are many other stamp positioning tools out there manufactured by other companies that are available, and they all look similar to this. Now, I'm just going to show you briefly and quickly how to use this tool today. If you want a more fuller explanation as well as hints and tips on how to get the best out of it, I'll leave a link at the top right of the screen to another video that will show you in more detail. The Stamp-A-Majig comes with a plastic imaging sheet, and you need both parts of this tool to position your stamped images. Now the first thing you need to do is stamp your image onto the plastic, and you do this by positioning the handle in one of your corners. So if you're left-handed, you'd position it either on top right or bottom right, or if you're right-handed, you'll position it either on bottom left or top left, and it's the top left that I like to use. So I've positioned my handle, and now I want to stamp my image. And I'm going to use Stays On ink, which is a permanent ink, so it's not going to rub off of the plastic. Now if I was just going to position one ad hoc image, I could use any ink and then just wipe it off my imaging mat. But because I'm creating a frame, I want that ink to stay put and not transfer to my fingers and then onto my project. So I've inked up my stamp and I'm positioning the stamping block into that Stamp-A-Majig handle so it's nice and snug, and then I just press it down to stamp on my imaging mat. Now you want to give this a minute or two to dry and then you can start using it. To stamp my actual frame, I'm going to use Memento Tuxedo Black ink. If I'd wanted to emboss it, I would have used the VersaFine Onyx Black, but I'm not going to do that today. So I've cleaned the Stays On off my stamp using Stays On remover, and my imaging sheet is now dry. so I can position my first set of stamps. Now, wherever you position the image on your imaging sheet, that is where your stamped image is going to be placed. So if I wanted it in the center of my card, that's where I position the image on my imaging sheet. But I know I've got to start top right, so that's where I'm going to position my first 4 ladybugs. So you want to make sure it's exactly where you want it to stamp and that it's straight. Then you reposition the handle to the top left position for me, or wherever you had it initially. I can ink up my stamp. I've removed my imaging sheet, and now I can stamp my image. Now, if you're new to a stamp positioning tool, it's best to keep your hand on the handle at all times. If the handle moves at any time, then you're not going to stamp the image in the place that you wanted to stamp it. Now, if your image didn't come out perfectly, as long as you haven't moved that handle, you can go again, you can double stamp. I would suggest before you start stamping your frame that you do a dummy run on some copy paper, just to make sure that the size of cardstock that you're using will work with the 4 images that you've got on the stamp. Now, I've created 2 templates, one for A4 users, which is on the right, and the other one is for 8.5 by 11 inch users, which is on the left. So if you don't want to create your own, you could take a screenshot of these and use the one relevant to your card size. Now, I've marked on it where I want to start and the order that I'm going to do the sides, if you like. I'm going to start at the top, then I'm going to go to the bottom, then I'm going to do the right side and then the left side. Now, these templates are different because the card sizes between 8.5 by 11 and A4 users are different. Planning out your frame first of all will ensure that you don't end up with 2 of the same ladybugs together on your actual frame. So I'm going to be copying the A4 one today. So I know I had to start in the top right corner, and I know I'll only be able to fit 3 of the ladybugs into the top left position. So I may have to do a little masking. Okay, so I'm going to take my imaging sheet again and line up my second set of 4 images to stamp. I'm just trying to ensure that the gap is okay between the ones I've already stamped and the ones on my imaging sheet. And I can see on the far left that I'm going to need to mask off that first ladybug. So I'm going to do that just by using a scrap piece of paper. Now I've added my handle and I'm going to ink up my stamp, position it into the top of my Stamp-A-Majig and then slide it down the handle. And you can see now I've got a perfect row of ladybugs. I'm now going to stamp the bottom edge of my frame, and I know looking at my template that I need to start in the left hand side this time. So I'm just lining up my stamp and trying to make sure it's straight, and then when I'm happy I can add the handle, ink up the stamp, position it into the handle and then slide it down to stamp the image. And then I can repeat this for the rest of the row. I'll only be stamping 3 of the ladybugs again, but this time my 4th one is actually off the edge of the cardstock, so I don't need to bother masking it. So I can add my handle, ink up my stamp, position the block in the handle and stamp it down. And now 2 rows of my frame are complete. Hopefully now you've got the hang of what I'm doing, so I'm going to whiz through the other 2 sides of this frame. And this is my finished frame. Now I won't be using this one today because I've already prepared one for this video. The ladybugs were coloured using the Stampin' Blends alcohol markers, and I used the light grey granite and the dark mango melody. I'm now going to complete my main panel for the front of the card. Now I'm going to ink blend some soft seafoam ink onto the bottom of this panel. So I'm just masking off the top part, and I'm leaving about 4.5 centimeters, which is roughly 1 3/4 inches, that I'm going to add the ink to. And now I'm going to use my homemade grass stencil and stencil some grass onto the soft seafoam ink. If you're interested in seeing how I created my stencil, I'll leave a link at the top right of the screen to a video showing you how I did this. I'm going to use Granny Apple Green ink this time because it's slightly darker than the seafoam. Now I'm positioning my stencil, and then I'm just going to lightly apply the ink at the base of it, on the edge of it. And this is a stencil that I created using a grass die, and it's actually the negative of it. I prefer to use this one because you can better control where to place the ink. So I'm just going to do one more row right on the top of that soft seafoam panel, and then I'm done. To finish off this panel, I'm going to use my homemade cloud stencil this time, and some Pacific Point ink, another blending brush, and I'm going to stencil some cloud shapes onto the top half of it. Now again, if you're interested in seeing how I created these stencils, I'll leave another link at the top right of the screen to a video showing you how I did it. My card base is in basic black, and it's half a standard sheet of card scored in the middle and folded to create a portrait card. Then I've got my Ladybug Frame panel, and I'm going to layer that onto a mat of Mango Melody. Then I've got my front panel, and that's going to be layered onto a basic black mat, and I've added dimensionals onto the back. And then I have a white mat for inside the card, and I'm just going to decorate this with another white strip which I've stamped the ladybugs on, and I've layered onto a strip of Mango Melody. Now I've coloured my ladybugs, again using light and dark grey granite and light and dark Melon Mambo. All the flowers are in Poppy Parade. And that's it. My card is now complete. And here's another quick look at my original one. Pretty much identical. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.